Welcome to the Brooklyn Pod with Pooch and Colin. My name is Colin Helwig, Brooklyn Nets beat writer for NetsDaily. We're clocking in for episode number 34 of the pod today. The always entertaining NBA trade deadline has now come and gone. However, Brooklyn's biggest move felt more like a blunt subtraction rather than an exchange. Cam Thomas's time with the Nets has come to an end. After such an eventful week, there's only one guy I could turn to help us break this all down. Friend of the show, Lucas Kaplan of NetsDaily and Swish Theory is here to talk through it all. Lucas, how you doing, man? How much did you enjoy or not enjoy the trade deadline this week?
I've come to really enjoy it more than I used to. I still remember, honestly, one of my favorite days of the season last year was whenever the Luka trade happened at 1 a.m. I remember my girlfriend and I were out walking around after dinner, and as soon as I got the notification, we had to sprint to find a good sports bar and discuss and debrief and look at SportsCenter on the TV. And I used to be they focus too much on the blah, 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 on the whatever, on the non-basketball, but it's pretty fun. It's pretty fun. I like feeling hopeful about this weird Jazz core in a way that I know that I won't a year from now, and same with the Wizards. And, it was nice that the Nets were more of a passive observer this week than at the center of the drama, as they have been in some previous trade deadlines.
Yeah, I remember that. I feel like the James Harden, Ben Simmons one, as far as kind of what you're leaning into, just saying screw it, I'll enjoy the drama here, was fun for everyone except for probably Nets fans, maybe even
That
Sixers fans, 'cause
sucks.
they were
That
done with
sucks.
Ben Simmons. Yeah.
I mean, every update just got worse. It was there's no you're not getting Tyrese, you're getting Ben and a bag of basketballs. There's one pick. I just remember that whole week getting progressively worse.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a bad one. I did enjoy this one, specifically the Wizards stuff. I think it's always it makes me a little warm inside when there's a team that's been tanking, been bad, been rebuilding, whatever you want to call it, and they finally flip the switch and they say, you know what, let's try to be good, because that's how it should be. It should always be like that theoretically in sports, even though it's not. So I think they trading for two guys that you can keep on the bench and still tank, but they'll be theoretically good next year is kind of genius in my opinion.
No, I want them to start this new regime on Saturday at 3 p.m. I think that's a good time for it to start. And I hope what am I saying? They're not going to bring these guys back next year. And they've done a good job. Like we talked about it in the press room. They've gone all the way from, Chris Paul to Jordan Poole to from Russ to Chris Paul to Jordan Poole to Brad Beal, or from starting with Brad Beal. All these guards, they end up at Trey without exchanging a first-round pick. And you get AD, and hey, you'll want to watch them next year more than you have in the past. I know that's not how NBA franchises measure their success, but that's fun. I mean, if they threw out Trey and AD tomorrow, I'd want to watch them way more than the Nets. So that's something.
Yeah, that'd be kind of awesome if they played on Saturday. I don't think that's gonna happen though. All right, so we're gonna start broad going through the trade deadline. We talked Wizards. You mentioned the Jazz. What was your favorite move that you saw? Nets related? Probably not Nets related. They kind of just moved in the margins, but just kind of canvassing the NBA. What got you excited?
I mean, I love James, so I'm excited for James to Cleveland. I'm gonna be repping them in the East this postseason. That was my favorite. And then, I don't know, like I said, the most intriguing was Triple J to the Jazz. I just think they're going to be funky. They're going to be really big and not good at passing the rock next year with a Lowry, Triple J, Walker Kessler front line. But it's fun. It's cool. So I would say those two. Kind of a basic pick, I guess. Kind of not really hot takes right there.
Yeah, it's years too late, and I really don't understand what's going on in Golden State. They're in the West. It's not really a conference where you can kind of survive as a middle ground team. That being said, the Warriors, since they were the Warriors that we know today, have been, 5-out offense. We're Draymond at the 5. We're not going to have a center, and if we are going to have a center, he's going to be smaller. He's going to be like a shooter. I feel like Porzingis has just been mocked to them in mock trades for years and years and years. So I don't know how it's going to work. I mean, it'll be nice to see them have some better rim defense. But I'm just kind of glad to see that finally happen. It again. I don't know what I don't think it's gonna work. I don't think they're gonna come out of the West or do much. It kind of feels like a feeble attempt to appease Steph Curry, like we see the Bucks trying and failing at doing too with Giannis. But I was just glad to finally see that happen.
It does feel like they kind of got rug pulled on Giannis a little bit, like the late reporting being that the Bucks started taking his name off the table and that maybe he wasn't as serious, yet like another annoying twist to this saga. And they perhaps just went with, okay, we'll revisit this in the summer, and in the meantime, $30 million of expiring salary will give us a little bit more flexibility in the summer. But it does feel like it's a few years too late. That being said, he's he's something like 12th in the NBA in EPM right now. He just has the plague and can't stay on the court. So I get it. I get it. Kuminga had a more of a return, a little bit more of a ceremonious ending than his 2021 draft compatriot Cam Thomas, who I'm sure we're going to get to.
Did you see by any chance, what Bill Simmons did to sum up the Kuminga exit on his
Was it
podcast?
was it the funeral for like a family man? Yeah. That was I've been to a funeral like that in the not so distant past, and that was a really apt analogy.
Yeah,
it was a good one.
Yeah, no, I got a kick out of that. I guess the Nets' version of that was even less ceremonious, but we will get into that later.
The Nets version of that was like when you have a really annoying problem in your apartment, like a sink that doesn't like a garbage disposal that doesn't quite work, or a bathtub that every time you shower there's always like an inch of water all the way around it, and you finally, after like 8 months, the plumber comes to your house, the superintendent fixes it, and it's like, all right, I mean, at least we did something today, Yeah, that's kind of what the Cam Thomas thing felt like.
Yeah, well, our plumbers in this situation were a couple second rounders. I actually lost the tally of how many they got this cycle, but I know they were up to 21 second rounders. So 21 Nick Claxtons, sign me the fuck up. And also the Nets got Josh Minot and Ochai Obagi. I really hope I'm saying that right. I'll figure it out if I'm not later. But what are your
Agbaji? I think Agbaji, and I think to your question that you're about to ask, they got some athletes, man. I'm with that. You hear me complain during games that they're not very athletic, but Minot steals, deflections, blocks. I got to look at I don't think he self-creates a lot of his attempts at the rim, but cutter, finishing on the break, and Agbaji, for everything that he can't do, he is probably like a NBA level wing athlete. So that's something. They'll be a little bit more physical, and just physically, athletically intimidating on the wings. So I'm with that, if nothing else. I get why they'd want to take a chance on Minot. Really good value. They only did it for $110,000, like the minimum you have to send back in a trade. I'm with that. That's pretty cool to me.
Yeah, it's nice to see the Nets. Who knows if these guys will pan out, but in previous trade deadlines, when they've sold guys off to get second rounders, whatever they can get back, they've taken back more veteran players. It was D'Lo last year. There's been a couple other handful that I'm blanking on right now, but it felt like they got guys where it makes a little bit more sense for the trajectory of the team, which we know is clearly that of a rebuild and that of a long climb back up into contention. So, and I agree with you on Josh's athleticism. That's kind of the first thing that jumped out to me when I, just started doing a little bit of research on him these last 12-6 hours. So it's the athleticism, especially, in relation to the team, they need that. They need that like a fish needs water, truthfully.
Thank God. I thought, it's funny. You think about the Nets, they could have been a team that made one of these deadline moves for next season, if they want to take the next step, right? Which we've been hearing, and they want to actually be a playing team or whatever, playoff team after next summer. And so when you think about that, they very easily could have overstepped and maybe not done the Anthony Davis trade, but traded for a player, still tanked, and integrated them into the lineup and roster next season. But by not doing so, I like what you said. It feels like they do know their place. This is going to be a slow climb. They're not actually close to anything yet. And self awareness is key, especially for a franchise that hasn't always had it.
Yes, self awareness is quite key. I think that's something that, and we'll get into kind of fan base reactions that I've seen, and I'm sure you've seen in relation to the moves that were made. But I do think, it's not easy to be like, yeah, let's suck for a little while, let's not win a bunch of games, but it's you got to be disciplined. Slow climb, but they're certainly on the way.
Yeah, I'm cool with it. I'm cool with it. Maybe it'll be something. Like I said to Eric Slater yesterday, maybe Agbaji or Minot, like you find that they can be a eighth, ninth man on like a serious team next season, or at
They-
least every once in a while, and like then you bring him back this summer, and it's an upgrade on Jalen Wilson or Tyrese Martin as your ninth or 10th guy or whatever it is.
Yeah, and they've missed that. I was having a conversation with a friend a week ago, and it was like the Nets still don't really have that guy where, did they get Damari Carroll before? I believe he was there before the season they made the playoffs. And, he wasn't young at that point, but a guy who, was kind of cast off by his team and the Nets bring in. And, he's not like the star of the team by any means, but important glue guy for, a now winning stage. I kind of feels like maybe they're trying to push that as Zaire Williams. I don't know, maybe that's just me, but they haven't found that guy because no one really stands out, at least in my estimation. So it's good that they seem to be looking for that guy.
Yeah, and
You should
that's a
always
good
be
point
looking
about.
for that guy.
Yeah, but that's a good point about Damari because everybody associates him with that 2019 playoff season. But you're right, he was there in 2018, and that's really when I'm sure he formed a lot of the connections with the younger guys that you would always hear them talk about. Him as a vet, and the relationship goes both ways. I remember Damari being not the last, but one of the later veterans in a string of guys to say, "Man, I really like what they got going on at HSS. I love this training staff." We heard that a lot. I feel like they're extending my career as an older guy, and so maybe Agbaji or Minot comes in this season and they say, "Man, I really like what they got going on here. Something is clicking under Jordy." And next season is when you really reap the fruits of that. I'm not saying it's super likely. I'm not going to trick myself into thinking that they won the deadline, but you never know. And Minot is not even 23 yet, or he might have just turned 23. He's right around there. And Agbaji, maybe the Nets think the 40% from three he shot last year was, if not real, something bankable, something to work on. They saw something in his shot that they liked. You can't put it past how in depth and detailed these pro scouting departments for NBA teams are. They got eyes everywhere and full 1,000-word reports on Minot already.
True, very true. So those are the additions. The big subtraction, we talked about it a couple seconds ago. Cam Thomas, he is out the door. The Cam Thomas era, if you can even call it that, is over. What was your shock level when you got the alert that they had cut him?
Wasn't shock. I kind of laughed, like a burst of air, a chuckle when you see something on your phone that doesn't quite make you laugh out loud. Like a three. There was no way he would be here past the deadline. And so operating off that premise and knowing that there wasn't much interest for him around the league, it's a little harsh, but like you connect the dots. How surprised can you really be? What was your level?
I was also at a three. And, and Bob, net income, had told me, months or at least a month in advance that this was always a possibility. And I thought about it too. It was very similar. And when you would hear Jordy Fernandez speak about Cam Thomas, it was kind of how he spoke about Ben Simmons last year leading up to it, where it was very just like type A answers, like this is what he's good at, this is what he's got to do. And we need him to get like healthy kind of stuff. And he was just kind of an afterthought of the team for about a month, coming off the bench, not really playing much, quick subs out. It really kind of just felt like a reflection of that, even though they're totally different players. So I I really expected it, and especially the fact that we got to like the trade deadline happened. Like it was like kind of like you said, he wasn't going to be here the second half of the year. He was either going to get traded or he was going to get cut. So when that happened, it was like, all right, when is this alert coming that, he is getting waived?
I wonder if the Nets really thought that they were going to get something for him. I mean, Michael Scotto, who knows his stuff, for sure reported that the Cavs and Bucks were both interested. So, okay, the fact that there's multiple teams, maybe you create, again, not a bidding war, but like a bidding skirmish, and you can get a second. But I think those two teams knew probably how desperate the Nets were to take CT, for someone to take CT off their hands. And I was like, why haven't they cut him already? Especially if you know you're not going to get anything at the deadline. So I do wonder if they genuinely thought that, they could get something in February, if they wanted to do a favor to him and his agent by not leaving him out there to dry. Most teams don't want to sign guys off the street until after the deadline when their books are closer to finalized. I wonder how sure or how convinced they were that they could actually swing a deal for CT.
Yeah. Were you shocked to see that, other people were shocked about it? Because I was to a certain degree, and I'll get to this in a minute. I want to let you go first, but I was a little shocked that I had people texting me. They were like, "Wow!" And I had on my way out of the office last night. This girl I work with stopped me, and she was like, "Oh my God, Colin, Cam Thomas, they cut him. Can you believe that? Did you have anything like that?"
Yeah, I had to explain to my grandmother, who's 96, who loves Cam Thomas. I said, "Well, they fired him. They're paying him to go home," and she was pretty shocked. And I get it from other NBA fans. Of all the stuff there is in hashtag this league, it's like, you really gonna keep up with the minutia of day-to-day Brooklyn Nets drama? I get it. It's not a surprise to us, but then you go to his basketball reference page, it's like, the dude averaged 24 points last year. Okay, he only played 25 games. He averaged 22 points the year before that and played like 60 something. So like, if you're not living and dying with the Nets, I get it. It's a funny thing on its face. So I get it. I get it. You don't see it a lot. He averaged 24 points last year.
Yeah, I think, and this is more so in the scope of people who do watch the Nets. If you're shocked, I feel like the Cam Thomas getting cut, getting waived is very, and your reaction to it is a litmus test for, have you paid attention to the direction that the NBA has been going in the last 5 to 8 years in terms of positional size, being a fluid player in the offense and not holding the ball for a long time, the weak link theory, which has been often talked about. I was at least a little shocked to see that there are still some fans out there who see ball go in the hoop, and that's cinema. I think it's this is a very good lesson. I think for, you got to be willing to listen, because I get it. Like, seeing the ball go through the hoop, that's a whole lot of fun. Like, I like to watch guys go out and get buckets. I'm sure you do too. But I think this should be like a learning point of, this is how the Nets are building. This is how other teams are building, and they don't want players that would have been maybe an all-star in 2004, but play like it's 2004.
It's also like, you can't just do the right things when it's convenient. My favorite Cam Thomas games were at the end of last year, and I felt like he was attacking the rim, but like really eager to, play make in pick and roll. And it's like, you can't just do that when you're getting the ball the whole game, and like when there's no threat of you being benched. And again, the contract situation is messed up for him. Like, he has every right to be pissed. If that, I'm not going to tell him he should value himself less, but if it's clear like that's not who he is as a basketball player after 5 years. There's so many times when he just reverts to, yeah, like, I'm dribbling the air out of the ball. Like, I really don't want to pass if I'm getting doubled. I'm trying to take a tough shot. And that's somehow it is worse than if he was really earnestly kind of fighting to overcome some of the deficiencies in his game. It's a little bit, I think it hurts his perception more that he does it and then he doesn't. And then he has a game where he's getting off the ball and seeing the low man and, trying to get all the way to the rim and trying to hit the lob. And it's like, okay, like I see it. And then he reverts to pounding the ball into the ground, not moving it, not taking catch and shoot threes, taking bad shots. It's like, it seems like that's just not who he is as a player. Like you can't come and go. That is, I think, more dissuading to teams than if he was just a guy like he was his rookie year, trying to work on these things. Some deficiencies, that's fine. Like we'll get through it. You know what I mean? Like the fact that he can seemingly do it and doesn't. As Cam Newton says, we give that grace to young players. We give that grace to rookies.
You're right. Yeah. He passed that threshold, and I I can't believe I keep comparing him to Ben Simmons, but it was similar but different with where it was, you gonna shoot the ball, pal? Like you gonna at least try to be like stop like putting yourself in handcuffs and your team in handcuffs on the offensive end based on where you position yourself and how you're gonna threaten the defense, and you just get too bold. And the back thing is bigger problem than anything with him, but it's that Cam Newton really dropped that bar, and I feel like now I see so many times where like it's applicable to guys' careers, and you see it play out, and it's like, all right, where is that border? I'm curious for you though, Lucas. Do you see any good landing spots for him? Having said everything that we've said in terms of his skill set and how it's not totally applicable today, but the guy's still talented.
Yeah, I mean, people have been talking about Houston. I don't see it as much. I think it'd be so funny with Ime, who has coached him in the past, though not on the court for very long. His rookie year with the Nets. Um, oh, maybe. Oh no. Cam was drafted. Yeah, no, they missed each other by a year. Never mind. Uh,
Right. Yeah.
I would like, I could see Detroit best case scenario. Just like, listen, if you had room for Jaden Ivey and Karis LeVert in the rotation, you have room for Cam Thomas. Same thing with, the Bucks being interested makes sense. They need some sort of buy low candidate. I don't really get the Cavs with not only Harden and Donovan, but like Dennis Schroeder and Keon Ellis off the bench. But I mean, to me, like Detroit would be a best case scenario. I don't know, obviously, if they're interested, but that'd be cool for him. I feel like if he can contribute on a really, really good team, that might help his stock. That might boost his stock more than if he goes to a play-in or tanking team and averages 20. You know what I mean? Like clearly that's not helping his market.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very tricky for him because he has, I think, such conflicting motives. He wants to definitely prove that he can be a winning basketball player. That's something people have said he can't be his whole career. Odds are you got to go to a halfway decent team, probably a good team to do that. It's a team sport. I can't imagine Cam Thomas is going to go to a middle ground team like the Chicago Bulls and, throttle them up to the 6th seed. But at the same time, he's going to be playing on a minimum this year. You want to make that money. Like I'm sure he wants to go to a place where he's going to have an opportunity. The Pistons really didn't do much of the trade deadline. They got Kevin Herter, but their coach at one point said, well, I don't want to mess up what we have, I believe, going into the trade deadline. So I don't see how they would be willing to bring in Cam Thomas and have him, throw their offense awry like that. That's clearly already a motive of theirs that they don't want to, break up what's been working for them so well. I think the Bucks kind of are that team that's maybe in the middle where, they assumedly, I don't know. I kind of thought for a little bit last week that they were going to just totally like tank, but who knows what's going on in that madhouse. But they're kind of in that area where Giannis comes back. Maybe they could win more games. Maybe they could, sneak up into the play-in, sneak up into the playoffs. But there's opportunity there for Cam because they are clearly lacking in the talent department outside of Giannis.
Yeah, and Giannis will love Cam as a teammate, and if he's, publicly disappointed in everyone else, surely CT will put an end to that.
Correct. Well, speaking of poor play, that has been what the Nets unfortunately have been all about really since, 2026, really at the turn of January. Team's looking bad. We've seen some really historic blowouts. just kind of watching the games, Lucas, is there anything other than a talent deficiency that stands out to you that's, leading to these really lopsided losses?
Yeah, I mean, now that they're not getting like really plus effort on defense, and it's always so hard to maintain that over a full tanking season, just don't have the they just don't have enough to compete. So it's that and the talent. And also it feels like penance for last season because start of February they go 6-1 in that demonic defensive stretch. But opponents are shooting like 24% from 3 or something over like a 3-week span. Happening to the Nets right now, like yeah, they stink, but also they are shooting like what was it against the Lakers? They started 2 of 20.
Yeah.
They're shooting like 1 of 15, it seems like every other half. And listen, they're not great, but that is not going to continue, and that is just killing them because then they have to defend in transition. These guys are already tired. They're going through the toughest part of their schedule in terms of they played like every fourth day in December, and now it's been every other day with back-to-backs for a month straight. So, teams are running on them. It's a mix of the talent, of course, but also really poor shooting stretch, and their legs are fried for sure.
Yeah, it's very cliche to say live and die by the three, but the Nets really do. We know why they can't put as much pressure on the rim. They really don't have anyone who can get into the paint because there's just no athleticism. Trey already does his best, but he's not really putting pressure on the rim yet, just kind of getting into the paint. So what do? You got to shoot the three ball. And we know Jordy is probably the most 3-point friendly coach in the league. So when you're so dependent on it and they're just not going in, it's going to be ugly, and that's why their halftime scoring output looks like that of a first quarter scoring output, and third quarter halftime, and so on and so on. So I'd like to say it should just be get a little bit better in the half court. I mean, try to push in transition. That's always a good way to get like easy points, but find ways where you can, diversify your shot profile better. But I just don't see it as something that's possible with this team. And that's where it comes back to where I'm thinking it's just a talent deficiency that feels lazy to say, but that at least in my opinion, that just seems that bad team's a bad team.
Yeah, bad team's a bad team, and they're playing all these rookies who are certainly hitting the wall. As to speak to that fatigue thing. At least, listen, I haven't been as high, like tooting their horn all year, but at least you get games like Yegor in Utah and then Nolan in Orlando. And I guess Yegor played well there too the other night. That's a crumb of hope, right? To satiate us through these dog days. We're still 3 months away from the draft lottery.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll be a big day for us and everyone, really. So that is absolutely circled on the calendar. All right, so one of the guys he had a tough one last night. Didn't play too hot against the Lakers either. Michael Porter Jr. snubbed of an All Star. I think Lucas wrote not too long ago before this bad stretch started, but he was on Old Man in the Three this week and kind of speaking about where he's at with the Nets. It stood out to me that he said I'm not on a good team, right? He didn't say that. I don't want to put words in his mouth because that'd be a little foul if he said, I'm not on a good team. However, he very much acknowledged the Nets are a young, rebuilding team. They're not going after a championship like he was with the Nuggets. And he said that he liked that. I'm curious, what was your take on that? Are you buying that?
Wait, repeat the quote to me. What I listened to the pod. What part are you asking about?
I don't have the full quote. I can look for it. I know he said that he more or less enjoyed being on the Nets this year, even though that
Yeah,
they're a new team and they're not winning a whole lot of games.
I really liked his. Yeah, I transcribed some of this for NetsDaily. I really liked his really going above and beyond in terms of talking about what it's like to be on a bad team. Again, not his words, but he said, man, I've had 7 years of winning. I have a championship. That has made this process so much easier, and I've been able to enjoy it so much more. Just the idea of like being on a team that's about not winning games at the moment, but competing, and more so like he said it's about these young guys trying to be a leader for them. Like the fact that he kind of really opened up about that, I thought was cool, and I buy it. Like he's like, it's not easy to. He didn't say this, but he said it's not easy to go in, and he kind of hinted at like sit through loss after loss, and you're getting blown out, but really going above and beyond in terms of thinking about and trusting the long term vision of the team. And not that it matters more than what he does on the court, but it is exactly what you want to hear if you're the Nets and you're, if he survives the summer of trade rumors, now that he survived this deadline, it's like, yeah, man, he's probably here for the long haul. Like he's probably a part of the next iteration. If especially, if you can meet in the middle on a contract extension. If you could do that, then this is exactly what you want to hear from one of your pieces moving forward.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I definitely bought it too, and I appreciated his candor. I think anyone who comes into the league as a high, especially as a high caliber player, the one thing on your shoulders that you want to win a championship. So when that is taken off, you're allowed to, you know, have these other experiences where James Harden is the complete other opposite end of the pole where he's just like bouncing from teams. Like the Nets had like a really bad stretch and they were still could have been contenders and he was like, get me the hell out of here because he's so desperate for and I think he was crazy for thinking that the Sixers had offered him a better chance to win a championship that year, but that's how he envisioned it and that's what he went for. And I believe it when these guys say that they enjoy being around each other too, MPJ included, and they all get along. I know Yegor took some time after the game last night to talk about the guys who left, talk about CT, talk about Tyrese, and he's like, I'm going to miss these guys, and I want to stay in contact with them. And I think that's kind of rare. So I very much I'm buying what MPJ is saying, and I'm buying the whole locker room vibe. I think this is a closer, tighter knit unit that's honest with each other than you would normally see from a team that has 13 wins and is getting smacked through the floor every night.
Yeah, especially because the rookies seem like such eager, genuine, workers and learners. And listen, the same thing that can make you laugh makes you cry with MPJ, or maybe you should flip that because when his candor is probably not appreciated by the PR departments around him, it's really a treat for fans when he's talking about basketball through his unfiltered mind and lens. When he keeps it basketball, man, he is one of the best quotes in the NBA for sure.
Yeah, totally agree. We look forward to. I don't know if we know he's not going to be in the All Star game. I think he's got a really good case to be in the 3 point contest, even a better case than Cam Johnson had last year. I know Cam didn't do too well, but there was one point in the season where he was top. It was at least a month ago. I'm sure it ticked down a little bit after the past couple games, but he was top three in 3 point percentage and 3 point attempts per game, just shooting the lights out. He's never been in that either, despite being touted as a shooter his whole career. So I would like to see him there.
It would be funny because he elevates so much on his shot and it like he really shoots over contests. I would love to see him shoot off the rack cuz he hasn't done it, has he?
No,
That's a little surprising. Yeah, it feels like Cam Johnson would be more of like an obvious choice, a little bit of like a lower release, doesn't jump as much on the shot. It seems like a more natural transition shooting off the rack, but I mean, based on pure merit, this dude can be in any 3 point contest he wants.
we need a redemption opportunity too because Cam did not do last year. Patty Mills before that did not do too well. Was it 2016 when Joe Harris won?
No, it was 2019. It was the year they made the
2019?
playoffs.
You know what? I
Yeah.
confused
I
that. I confused that with Spencer Dinwiddie winning the skills challenge, which might not have been
ah,
2016, but it was before that.
and it's a hallmark experience for every Nets fan, as you well know. Unlike me, my main Nets All Star memory is I was in middle school and I was away with my friends. We were at like, I think maybe one of them had like divorced parents and their dad or their mom lived up in the upstate, big house, and we were like all there for the weekend. And I was like, we're watching All Star Weekend, and my friends were, messing with me, and the channel got changed just as Joe Johnson was about to embark on his 3-point contest round, and I loved me some Joe Johnson. And I was freaking out, and I get the remote back, and he's like 80% of the way done, and he is like 5 on the scoreboard. And I think it was on TNT, and Kevin Harlan is like, and Joe Johnson just cannot find the range today. A disappointing showing from the Brooklyn Nets leading scorer, and it was I didn't enjoy that, but it really sticks in my mind as a core Nets All-Star Weekend memory.
What do you think is more embarrassing, having a poor outing on the 3-point contest or having like trying to think of the guy, Jericho Sims like dunk contest performance?
I think it's I think it's a dunk contest just because like how can you make something look so the coolest how can you make the coolest, most enviable thing in sports feel lame? And that's what a bad dunk contest run is. You know, a 3-point contest, it's like everybody knows you can still shoot the rock. You know, everyone already has the built-in excuses, but a poor dunk contest, it's like, didn't you like practice at all, or it's a little cringe. You know, it's just a little cringe.
It's a good take. I like that.
What about you?
I'm kind of in the same boat. I think it's case by case though. Like it depends what you're trying to pull off in the dunk contest. If you're still like, I mean, I can't think of a good example right now, but say Blake Griffin missed the car dunk. If he's still leaping over a Kia, I'm like, that's pretty impressive, you know? And if
Right. It's almost worse if you make the dunk. It's almost worse if you're John Collins
Yes.
breaking like a wood and paper airplane on your way to like a normal dunk.
because you know that person in their head, they were like, this is gonna be sick. And because they do it, and then everyone's like, all right, pal. Like that's it.
I know, yeah. Like I said, it's hard to make a dunk look lame. It's really hard to make a successful dunk feel lame. So that's got to be my winner, my loser, I guess.
Gotcha. All right. So one thing, this is a new segment we're doing just to kind of close us out here. In the spirit of the trade deadline, Lucas, what's one thing that you wish the Nets did that they didn't do this week?
Oh. Um. Do you have anything?
I mean, it's something I've been thinking about for a while, and you wrote about not too long ago either. I would have liked to see them trade Nicholas Claxton because Day'Ron Sharpe's
Yeah.
playing the best ball of his career. It makes too much sense. You know, the Nets are, unless they want Claxton there as a tank commander, but I really don't think they operate that way. Otherwise, Cam Thomas would still be here. But I just think it's Day'Ron's time. Claxton, I think he still has career high marks. So that's like, even though we know like some of his numbers have dipped, that's still something in trade talks, you know, you can lead the conversation with. It just feels like it's time, you know.
It does. And part of it maybe is tanking, and part of it is knowing that Sean doesn't love to make his big deals until the summer, you know, unless a guy asks out, which has happened a lot at the recent trade deadlines. But I would have liked that. I think it's time to turn the page. I want to see Nick on a contender. I also just think, like I wrote about, I think there's a path for them to move forward with Day'Ron starting and taking up much less of the cap. And it feels time to cut that cord, maybe. And if it's not at the, I was thinking maybe more in the summer, but you know, I wouldn't have that. That would have been nice to see. It does feel like it's time, and I'm ready to give Nick like a proper send off.
Yeah, the summer definitely is Sean's time. You know, Nick, to that we know, hasn't asked out, and it's not like he's on an expiring deal. So that kind of negates those are the two motivators that Sean has always had to trade guys at the deadline. So not surprised that they didn't ship him out. I just kind of would have liked to see it, especially with how well Day'Ron has been playing.
Yeah, he is. I Day'Ron's a funky player, and there some of his skill set is really easy to fit into an offense. Some isn't. Like, you know,
Yeah.
the lineup constructions around him, how real is the finishing leap? But either way, he's earned enough for me to be like, I'm really intrigued to see him in a bigger role, in a starting role at some point in the near-ish future.
Yeah, it's definitely still an experiment. I would like to see the experiment in its full self, I guess. All right, so that's all we had for you today, Lucas. Thanks for coming on, man. We always appreciate it when you're able to stop by. You want to let the people know where they can find you? I'm sure they already do, but for any new listeners out there.
Yeah, of course, man. NetsDaily on Blue Sky, on X, the Everything app. Just my name. Doing a lot of work on women's basketball on my Substack right now, which I hate saying the words my Substack, but it is true. And yeah, other than that, it's really a lot at NetsDaily these days. Always writing about the rookies, always writing about whatever's going on with the team. So yeah, man, appreciate you having me on.
Of course, bro. We who do we got? We're recording this on Friday, February 6th. So got the Wizards on Saturday, Bulls on Monday, Pacers on Tuesday or Wednesday, and then it's the trade deadline, I believe. So
The
a
All-Star
couple of those
break.
also, what did I say? Yeah, that's where my head. All-Star break is after that, so then everyone will have some time off. We'll be working on some stuff at Nets Daily, though. I got a feature on Nolan Traore coming up, so check out that. Check out, again, Lucas's work, Nets Daily, and we will catch you guys next time. We are the Brooklyn Pod on X, Instagram, TikTok. You can email us at thebrooklynpod@gmail.com. Take care, everyone.